You say a supply-side argument isn't totally crazy.
Well, I think the point I would make is that, whether wage increases translate into higher inflation depends on the firm's pricing power. And actually, if you listen to some of the FOMC speakers last year, they devoted a bit of time on that. Obviously, the pricing power is still affected by things like global competition, digitalization of the economy, the ability of consumers to make price choices in a more informed way. So there's a possibility that firms will not be able to pass on the full kind of increase in wages to the consumers of their products. But nevertheless, I think if we take a broader view, over time, higher wages should translate to higher inflation.
So Lena, I'm not an economist, so you have to explain this to me. What has to happen with productivity in order to have 3 or 3+% growth for an extended period of time, which is basically what the White House is projecting, and say, but we're not going to really have underlying inflation? Sorry, Lena, can you hear me?
Yes, hello. Sorry, I didn't hear that the question was towards me.
Yeah, it was.
Hi. Well, I think, look, I mean, there is the fundamental question that you raise here, but if we leave that to one side for a second, there are two very important political and policy implications behind these comments. On the policy front, if a Minister of Finance of any nation is not talking down the trade deficit and talking down the cost of its treasury's borrowing by talking down inflation and talking up productivity, which is what is needed to limit the transmission from unit labour costs towards higher end-user inflation, to the point and the question that you just raised, then this Minister of Finance is not doing his job right. On the political front, however, such attempts to try to politicize the tools of monetary finance by politicizing, for example, the exchange rate or the interest rate, by giving an open-hand sort of suggestion to the Fed that they should perhaps consider the two sides of the story here, and that there's not just a demand cyclical momentum, but there's also a supply-side productivity element which will take longer to see, materialize, and appreciate. I think that's a dangerous path to go towards, because, of course, talking down the U.S. cost of borrowing or the U.S. currency is a matter of international relations, as we saw from the ECB's response yesterday.